Hi, you're listening to Sustainably Geeky, episode 78. Once again, I would like to remind everyone that we are on Buy Me a Coffee, so if you are so inclined, feel free to go to buymeacoffee.com/sustainablygeeky and support us however you're able. And now I'm excited to introduce our guest for this episode. Today I'm speaking with Steve Pallrand, the founder of CarbonShack, an interior design and architectural build company focused on seamlessly blending sustainability, innovation, and beauty with a mission to make sustainable living an integral part of our everyday experience. So Steve, thank you so much for joining us. And can you start by telling us a little bit about your background and how you came to start CarbonShack?
Sure. My background, I'm an avid backpacker that I backpack with my dad, when I was young. So I've always had a love of the outdoors. But my professional background, I began my design and construction practice about 25 years ago, maybe even a little bit more than that. And I began in historic preservation. And what what I began to do is that for when we were doing additions or restorations of any of the historic vernacular styles you find in Los Angeles, which could be Victorian, Craftsman, Spanish Colonial Revival, up to mid-century. Um, when we were helping people do those additions or repairs or something, we wanted to find the material that matched the historic structure, like craftsman siding or real 2x4s that were 2 inches by 4 inches, things like that. And so what we began to do is we began to salvage homes in the neighborhood. Um, our I My business was originally near USC, and USC was tearing down a lot of craftsman homes. Beginning, even 25 years ago, whatever, before and after. But they would remove these homes to make room for multifamily. Total reasonable goal. But what we would do is we would go in and we would deconstruct these houses, take them completely apart so that we could have the flooring, the real 2x4s, the siding, millwork, all that kind of stuff. And we would just pile it in our yard and have it available for these additions or repairs or restorations. So that if we say we're adding a bathroom or a bedroom to a historic craftsman house, the siding would match those, so that you really felt the authenticity of the material. And so one day I'm standing in my yard and I'm like, wow, I got, four Craftsman homes stacked over there, two Victorians, five Spanish Colonial Revivals. And I'm like, we're the greenest people around, because for the most part, we're encouraging people to take their existing structure, which has an embodied carbon footprint, and insulate it. So therefore lower their operational carbon footprint. So they're the greenest people around because, they're not building new or clearing the lot, throwing everything out and building new. And then when they're doing an addition, significant, large or small, we're bringing in material that is not new material, but it's salvage material. So again, we're lowering people's carbon footprint. So that really began Carbon Shack because um, the idea of Carbon Shack was really to talk to people beyond the historic vernacular styles in Los Angeles. Um, you know, the people who uh, wanted a contemporary product or a modern product, but who really wanted to optimize their relationship with the natural world. Think about how every choice they make has an impact on their wellness and their health, and also the wellness and health of the natural world. So that's so our sustainable practice began in historic preservation because preserving these materials for these historic projects was really about valuing. It came out of valuing historic architecture, but also valuing historic material. And then you think about it, and in California, these old homes were built with old growth Douglas fir and redwood that you can't get anymore. So why are we throwing that stuff to the dump where it decomposes and causes more, negative, harmful climate gases? Why don't we just take these houses apart and reuse them within the inner city, thereby lowering carbon footprint, lowering transportation pollution, all that kind of stuff? It's interesting. In one state in the United States, Oregon, they have a code that any home built before 1940 has to be deconstructed in exactly the way we do. We began our practice a long time ago. That's a more recent code. And it just makes sense. It not only makes sense for cost, because when you take a house apart, that pile of material, the cost of taking it apart is the same or cheaper than buying it new. So it makes sense financially. Uh, and it makes sense from a building point of view because you can't get this material anymore. You should not be throwing out old growth redwood. You should not be throwing out old growth Douglas fir. So, that approach makes sense. The problem is education. Uh, Most people don't know that. So when they have a house on a site that's existing, they think the easiest thing to do is just lot clear it and take it off. Oh, it's too much trouble to take it apart, and they don't understand that it makes sense to take it apart. Uh, it's responsible and it's also cost effective.
Yeah, I was going to ask you in comparison the cost for doing that, because I think a lot of people do think, oh yeah, building new from scratch is always the best way, but clearly you guys have made a business out of doing this. So there's a,
Yeah. Well, it's like any uh, aspect of certainly the design and construction business. I mean, when you hire somebody or talk to somebody, they have a set skill set, and they may not know how to take a house apart. It's not self evident. Somebody has to have done it before. That it's actually, for example, even wetting down the house with a hose. You think, oh gosh, you wouldn't do that with wood; it's going to warp. But actually, it makes pulling the nails out easier. So it's not a talent that everybody has, just as, you know, being an electrician is not a talent everybody has. You have to have some sort of education to see that this is a possibility. So when you hire somebody, for example, in the HVAC industry, the heating air conditioning industry, at least out here, traditionally, everything was done with gas, and so now, of course, we have heat pumps, which are wonderful. But when you call a HVAC person, they may not have done a heat pump, so therefore they don't offer it because they don't know about it and haven't been educated on it. So a lot of it, the problem is that people haven't been in the trades, or clients or designers haven't been educated as to what the possibilities are. Therefore, they just default to what somebody can do. Yeah.
so is it a matter of, let's say someone is clearing a house or a plot of land to rebuild? Do they hire you guys to come tear down the house, or do you pay for, the material and everything? Like where's the cost, I guess, associated with that?
What do you mean? Where's the cost in?
Well, like if somebody is trying to clear a space and you guys aren't already involved, would they then hire you to come do it, or would you say, no, we want to come get that material, we'll take it off of you, kind of thing?
Well, we've done a lot of that where people, if we see a house being taken apart, we run in and say, "Hey, can we grab this stuff?" But if most people involved in demolition can, if they stop to think about it, can figure out how to take a house apart. So you can really even just ask somebody, hey, let's do it a little bit differently. Why don't you take this apart rather than bringing a bulldozer in?
Mhm.
A lot of stuff in Los Angeles is driven by developers, and they sort of have a timeline. So to bulldoze a house takes a day. For us to take it apart might take 2 weeks.
Mhm.
On our website, CarbonShack website, we did uh, document this one house, fully documented how much labor it took and what the cost of new materials would have been. We actually have a wonderful uh, time lapse photography of the complete deconstruction of this house, and it's very beautiful. And then we actually really quantified, how much did we save in hauling costs, how much labor was there versus buying the materials new, and we were really surprised how how effective, cost effective it was. That it wasn't, you would think that it would be a lot more, but the labor to take it apart for a week or two, but actually, it's not when you look at the cost of new, because then the material's free. So you're paying labor, but you're not buying material. So it actually works out very well.
Gotcha. Well, this is good to know for any of our listeners who may be looking to renovate or, rebuild. an existing home or structure, and maybe they know now that there are options no matter where they live in the country. They can kind of ask the company they're working with to look into
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Um,
it can be very simple. I mean, every project we work on, if there's a single story house and people want to build a two-story, what we do is we always just save the framing, just look around, break up the concrete and reuse it as planter beds. I mean, it's so,
mm,
it's easy once somebody, tells you about it. It's sort of,
yeah.
but you just have to, again, be educated as to what the possibilities are.
Yeah, because the amount of waste produced by the building and construction industry in in the U.S. anyway, is just astronomical, right? Like I don't remember the figures, but I know it's like one of the top
Oh yeah,
producers
it's
of
like,
landfill sites.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
everything we can do to reuse that stuff is great.
Yeah.
Um, well, that's a great story, and really cool that you started out in historic homes, which I know are kind of challenging in their own right because there's so many rules about what you can and can't do to those buildings. So the fact that you had access to some of this old material really helped, and then you were able to move that, like you said, into this more modern structures and a lot of interior design work as well.
Yeah. I mean, the approach of really basically the approach of uh, you know thinking about salvage and reuse. I mean, it's interesting. I was visiting Brooklyn over the holidays, and walking around Brooklyn. I'm in Los Angeles, so you tend to drive around rather than walk around. So I was in a city where you're walking around, and uh, I was just stunned with how many vintage clothing stores there were compared to new clothing stores. And it's like we have them out here, but when I was in an urban center where I'm walking, it's a little bit more apparent. And But we don't do that in the design industry. Like we really should be taking, like I see people throwing out old chairs and stuff like that. Well, we pick them up and reupholster them. So that approach to just thoughtful reuse can be very creative. With so many, vintage clothing stores, we should have, vintage, furniture stores. And we do that, but I think there's so much room for more of that type of product.
Yeah, I wonder if it's because it's more labor intensive or it takes more specialty knowledge to fix this old leather chair or table or whatever piece it is than clothes. I guess I don't know, but yeah, I do think it'd be really cool to see more of those kind of spaces open up. Um,
Yeah.
so I want to talk a little bit about the indoor spaces that we spend our time in, because in your organization does a lot around designing these spaces and remodeling buildings and everything. So can you talk about the impact that the indoor spaces that we live and work have on our health and well-being?
Yeah. I mean, we think of outside air quality indexes. I mean, certainly in California, and certainly with our fires recently, we're always monitoring the outdoor air quality, but we're not necessarily monitoring our indoor air quality. So, but when you think about it, and my great example is gas cooking. When you one of the leading causes of childhood asthma is because we are burning fossil fuels in our kitchen, and then in the cooler times of year in the winter, we're not getting the air circulation to get that toxicity out of our environment. So indoor air quality is a significant concern. So we're also encouraging our clients to switch to induction cooktop, because then you get the burning of fossil fuels out of your kitchen, which of course is crazy because for us in California or in the United States, if you are burning fossil fuels to heat your house, or if you're burning fossil fuel to heat your water, that byproduct of the combustion has to be vented above the roof because it's toxic, right? Well, but somehow we're allowed to burn exactly the same gas in our kitchen. Like, obviously, there's something wrong with that. So, gas cooking is a leading cause of indoor air quality, as are the off gassing of paints and glues and things like that. So when you start to think about indoor air quality versus outdoor air quality, you realize that we really need to pay attention to if we're going to pay attention to our health, we need to pay attention to what's going on in our indoor air quality. Um, and I'll say that uh, you know, anything we do, I sort of don't like using sustainability anymore because we have to be careful. Everybody's sustainable now. I think even Uber is sustainable somehow. AI might be sustainable. I don't know, but I like to use wellness because it sort of has more of a direct impact. And I think that's so effective because if we think about moves, what we do to our interior environment in order to make uh, our interiors more healthy for us, to concentrate on the wellness of the occupants. Anything you do to improve the wellness of the occupant is going to improve the wellness of the natural world. If we switch from cooking with fossil fuel to induction cooktops, that's improving our indoor air quality and it's also reducing the need for fossil fuel. If we use a natural plaster on our wall and get rid of paint, and therefore get rid of the off gassing of the VOCs from paint. That's improving our indoor air quality, and it's reducing the need for the industrial production of paints. Right? Uh, the list goes on and on. So really, if we use more natural materials, solid wood rather than fiber boards and things like that, we all those moves are um, moves that improve our indoor health and also, you know, uh, reduce the impacts on the natural world.
Yeah, and I think there's also just a benefit to your mental health as well to be in a space that is more natural or that is made healthier in a way that makes your body healthier. So, and just being in a space that's decorated nicely or has a
Yeah,
calming effect or something. So, there's a lot of benefits, I'd say, to your indoor surroundings.
yeah. I mean, that's the biophilic approach. Biophilia, where we're bringing nature into the indoor environment. And if you have very mid-century industrial looking space, and you put a plant in, everybody it's like, oh, it feels much calmer. So bringing light, bringing the natural world into our spaces does have an impact. Obviously, more natural light is very important. More windows, because our bodies need that. Our circadian rhythms are all tied into natural light. So bringing more you know nature into more of the natural world into the interior environment definitely is good for our health. um, you know the but so we our designs are biophilic designs, and that's about bringing the natural world into our dwellings. But also, again, it's like my point about wellness is that we also, when we bring the natural world into the environment, we have to think about this relationship. It's not a one-way relationship where we take advantage of nature, but we also have to think about our impact on the natural world. So we want to have that be a relationship, not just a consumption of the natural world.
Yeah, that's very important. And I can attest to the having plants around you. It makes you feel better because I have plants all over. You can't see them now, but
Yeah, or
my room
natural
is full of
natural light.
plants.
Yeah,
Yeah,
natural
yeah,
light.
yeah. It
How
makes a huge
wonderful is it
difference.
to have, your room filled with natural light? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Well, you kind of answered my next question already, which is some examples of the sustainable is the word I was going to use, but I guess more well-being interior design practices. You gave us quite a few there. So, what are the benefits for businesses that might want to implement these practices into their buildings and structures? I guess for both the business and the employees that work there.
Yeah, I think that it's an easy example is we just had a bunch of wildfires here in Southern California. Well, and so I actually had, long ago, I had bought very high end air filters for our space in case, there was a wildfire or there was just sort of excessive pollution. Well, so my employees came in and the air outside was, the AQI index was over 150. And actually, the AQI index at my house was 468 out of a possible 500. I mean, it's basically almost a solid waste. Well, I had the air purifiers running in the office. I had them ready and they were running. So, uh, you know, what's the benefit there? Well, my employees, knew that I cared about their wellness. So I think that when you're adopting these sustainable practices, whether you're looking at it through the lens of pure sustainability of like, hey, we're going to put in heat pumps to, heat our office or our house. Well, you're being responsible towards, the natural world, and that just is, good energy you're putting out to your family or your clients or whatever. But uh, it's then when you move it to real examples of bringing natural light in or having filters or using natural materials or recycling and making sure that your recycling actually goes somewhere that the recycling is recycled, or maybe you bring composting in. All these things just are little small examples of how you're caring for the people in the building as well as the natural world, and that just reflects on you as a uh, you know in your family, or it reflects you as a business owner. I mean, it's about making sure that everybody is taken care of and healthy, and it's just obviously those that approach goes a long way with the people who live in the space or work in the space.
Yeah, for sure. So let's say,
But of course, I'm
oh,
sorry. Of course, there are cost benefits as well, right?
hmm,
Like, if you put solar on, if you're a business and you put solar on your roof and you have batteries, you're going to be saving money over time. So there are, of course, many ways to. It's not just smart to if you're a business, to have your employees know that you care about them and you care about their wellness, you care about their health, but it's also you can save money with a lot of these things too.
well, and if they're not getting sick because their air is
Wow,
cleaner and they're
that's a
not
good
calling in
point.
and all that too.
Right,
That's
yeah,
another.
that's an excellent
It,
point.
not that money should be the main decision behind these things, but a lot of times that's the thing that I guess
Yeah,
tips them over the edge. So, um, well, for the average person or small business that might already be settled into a space, they don't have a lot of flexibility maybe in what they can and can't do, but they want to implement more sustainable design, wellness practices into their space. What are some things that they can do without breaking the bank, without starting completely over?
yeah. One of the criticisms I have of sort of the green design or green building it business is that we approach things in sort of more of an orthodox manner. Like, you have to be perfect, you have to have the lead this certification, blah blah blah, and not everybody can be perfect, and that turns people off. Like, when I look at Los Angeles, how many lead certified homes are there, or how many passive homes are there? There's like under a dozen for the whole city. uh not everybody can be perfect, so what we say to people is, do what you can. Those small uh, choices are very important. So, and not everybody can remodel. Not everybody's building new. So the point is that every time you confront a decision, just be mindful about how you make that decision. Let's say you're changing out your hot water heater. Well, just understand what the options are: gas tankless, electric, or heat pump hot water heater is the best. Changing out a dishwasher. Make sure that dishwasher, you just have one choice. Make sure that dishwasher is Energy Star rated, or your washer and dryer went out. Well, then look at a heat pump, dryer, or put up a clothesline. Just we. I think the thing to think about is that uh, you don't have to. Uh, you don't have to be orthodox. You don't have to do the whole thing. You can make small decisions. Like, let's say uh, you live in the most unsustainable environment and you just start composting. Well, that's an impact. And it doesn't cost you much. You're reducing waste going to the landfill. You're creating soil, and hopefully you have a place to dump it. I was My family was living in Marseille in south of France, and they're middle of an urban area, and they actually had these places where you could go dump your compost to create soil. It's like this sort of community soil thing, because otherwise, you're in the middle of the city. You don't have a place to grow plants, so grow soil like vegetables. So they had a place in a small pocket park where you could go dump dump your compost to create soil for other people. It was wonderful. So I think that, just thinking of those, not being intimidated by the fact that I can't do everything, and just, every decision you have to buy something new, and in that case, my mantra is always for purchasing, new things, is local and durable. The more you're purchasing local, the more you're reducing, energy costs. I mean, we think about all those ships, container ships around the, traveling around the world, uh, huge impact on the climate. If you can buy local, you're going to be supporting local businesses. You're going to be reducing transportation costs, and then buy durable. Uh, if you, the more durable a product is, let's say you're looking at appliances, even get the better appliance because it's not going to break down and have to be replaced. If you're looking at flooring, and tile is actually has a higher, uh, you know, because it has to be fired, it has sort of a higher negative climate value, but yet it's going to last hundreds of years. So, try to make sure that every choice you have to buy something, just think about, what the impact of your dollars are, because it does add up. It has, your choices do have an impact.
Yeah, and I think it's so important what you said about it doesn't have to be perfect all at once for everything we do in sustainability in our life, because I think people get so overwhelmed with I have to completely overhaul every part of my life right away, and it's just not feasible for most of us. Like you can replace things one at a time as they break, and it's probably more sustainable to do that than to throw out something that's completely functioning, wait till it breaks to actually replace it, a lot of times. And yeah, the upfront cost of things can be tricky because it might be more to get that, top of the line heat pump thing. But if you buy the cheaper one, how many times do you have to replace that when the other one, the more expensive one, will last you longer? So it can be a tricky thing to figure out. But overall, I think durability is the key.
Yeah, yeah, and it's really, a complaint to our, to the building, to design professionals, that we're always out there telling people you have to do this, you have to do this, and that just becomes intimidating. And really, we have to allow people to approach it, incrementally, and not be perfect. Okay, I only have this amount of dollars. I'm going to make a bad, this isn't going to be a perfect decision, but I'm going to move a little bit in this direction. So yeah,
Yeah, and that's kind of the whole point of this show, is to show people like little things they can do here and there as they're able, and then eventually you'll start to see, oh, I've made all these changes over the
yeah,
course of this much time. But yeah, you can't expect like any of us, none of us are doing it all 100% all the time.
right, right. And
Um,
you think about it, every choice you make has, if you're looking at changing out your heating system or your hot water system or your appliance, that choice you're making to continue to cook with gas for the next 50 years or more, you're going to buy a hot water heater. Well, that could be, 20, 40 years of continuing to use a fossil fuel.
mm,
So just think about the longevity of your decision too, that you're committing yourself to using fossil fuels if you buy an appliance, that, or a car, which, or anything like that, and
right.
yet, we're right up against our 2030 climate limit.
Yeah.
So it's like you're purchasing something that is going to continue to use fossil fuels way beyond, what we're advised to be using fossil fuels.
Well, and that makes me wonder if we're going to have the opposite problem of what you mentioned earlier in the show, of people not being as up on the newest technology. Eventually, they won't be as up on the older technology, right? Like they're going to learn the new stuff, the heat pumps, whatever, and then maybe they won't remember or know how to work on the older stuff. So if that breaks, you're not going to have anybody to come service it. I know, like, I had to replace an air conditioner in the States, and they couldn't really do anything because the Freon I had been using was basically outlawed, and they were like, "Yeah, you just have to replace it at this point because we can't renew it or whatever." So things like that, will this even be viable for 40, 50 years? Even if it can last, will anybody be able to come service it? Um,
Well, any servicing is incredibly expensive. I
mhm.
mean, if you have to have your dishwasher serviced, and that's why most people, throw out their dishwasher, throw out their refrigerator, because the servicing of it is just so expensive because it's labor. When you're building something on a production line, the labor costs are very low, and there's the advantages of scale of the on a production line. But when somebody gets in their truck, commutes to your place, gets out, tries to figure out what's going on, gets a part, goes and orders a part. I mean, all that takes labor time, and so repairing it is very easy that repairing your dishwasher or refrigerator or something like that costs almost half or more than the unit itself. So that's why people throw it out. So again, you know, um, buying a more durable unit makes sense. It's going to reduce your repair costs over time.
Yeah, that's just maddening too when we're trying to reduce waste, but we produce more because we can't get it repaired for a cheap enough price. But that's
Yeah,
that's a whole other
yeah,
rant.
yeah.
Um, well, I guess let's get back to talking about the overall industry. Um, in the current design industry, you've talked about some of the things you guys are doing, but how sustainable is the industry as a whole, and what opportunities still exist? Are people doing what you guys are doing, or is it kind of a rarity?
It's more of a rarity. I think people are beginning. There's a lot of greenwashing going on. People talking the talk, but not necessarily walking the walk. But so there's not a lot going on, but there's a lot of talk going on. In some sense, you could say, well, that people are talking about these topics is beginning the conversation. So, I saw Martha Stewart had an article on biophilia. Veranda had one. So, is Martha Stewart, is she all sustainable? I don't know, but okay, she sees that that's a new trend, and so the more that we talk about these things, and the more that people, even though I'd say the design industry is not that far along, uh, we're beginning to talk about it. And that, I think, the more you talk about it, the more you're aware of it, right? And the more possibilities that come out of that. So I would say that we're not very far along. There's an incredible amount of opportunities uh, to in the industry, and but in that people are just kind of yakking about it right now and not doing as much. I think the yakking is actually good because it's beginning to make people aware of the you know uh, of the the need and the conversation. So you know I think that what we try to do is encourage designers and professionals to, even if they think that climate change is a hoax. Our argument is, you know what, you want to be the smartest person in the room. You want to know what all the options are in the industry. So I don't care what you think, just make sure you offer your clients the full range of possibilities. You should know about the heat pump hot water heaters, and why they're an advantage, and about gas tankless. You should know about the vegetable based leathers that are out there. You should know about the seaweed threads that are out there. You should know about all these things, and there's incredibly exciting things going on. High end designers are using mycelium based leathers and all sorts of fascinating, interesting, beautiful things that are evolving. So things are evolving in the industry. Are they evolving fast enough? No. It's still
Yeah.
what's cheapest, and so yeah.
But the good thing about most sustainable practices, products, whatever, I think, is that even if you don't believe in climate change, like you said, there's still so many other benefits that you could, okay, take that out of it. There's health benefits, there's cost savings, there's resource savings. Like in your industry, especially, I would think that'd be a huge draw because, you're saving the amount of trees you have to source and grow. And that's, a long term issue as well, is planning and having enough trees and rock and whatever to do, like physically having the stuff to do what you need to do. I'd say just reusing is a good solution to that problem for long term. But
Yeah. Well, the other thing I argue is reusing, and locally sourced materials, local vendors. It's a much richer conversation to have, and it's a richer association you have with the product that you buy. Here in California, and actually, throughout the United States, farmers markets have become, huge in the last 20 years. Uh, and uh, why are farmers markets, so successful and so popular? It's because we want to have a relationship with the people who produce our food. Marx talked about that, about the loss of the during the Industrial Revolution, the loss of the relationship to the production. We're now not on farms. We don't know our animals. We don't know how our food is made. And it would seem like, well, who cares if I know who made my vegetables? It would seem like, well, yeah, what does it matter? But it turns out that people want to have an emotional relationship with the people who produce their food. They go to farmers markets, because they enjoy that experience, that emotional experience. They'll still go to the supermarket to buy the bulk items and everything, but there's a reason why farmers markets are popular. And the same is true with design products. Is that if somebody wove some thread or made something, there's just an emotional connection to the producer. We were coming out of the post World War II, industrial production of materials in the mid-century modern movement. And what we are advocating for in our architectural design practices is more handmade finishes, hand applied plaster, because and this is why people like, older homes too, is they like the fact that you walk in there and it's handmade. Somebody stacked those rocks. Somebody applied that plaster. There's a humanity and an emotional relationship we can have with our buildings. And that's that. Somebody made this. Somebody carved that. We do a lot of hand carved furniture, and it's just so beautiful. I look at some of the hand carvings we have that our carver has done, and I'm not just looking at the beautiful design, but I just marvel at the artistry. It's just, wow, wow, it's amazing, what talent. And that's example of how we want to have this emotional relationship. And it's just a richer relationship when you go to a farmer's market, or you buy a product a basket that was made by somebody in your community, things like that. There's stories there, and those stories make then you put that bag over your shoulder. It's just a richer story. There's a woman who makes these bags, for the market, out of used feed bags. So they'll be like chicken feed bags and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And
I've
it's
seen
just,
those. They're really
yeah,
cool.
it's just wonderful. You smile when you put it on your shoulder. There's a story there. There's a relationship. So I think that yeah, I think that
Yeah, and
there's a desire for that.
all these products, or whether it be a thing or a house or piece of furniture, like they're just more interesting. There's character there. It's not what everybody else has, and I think that's, for me, one of the biggest draws is, like, I want that thing that someone made that's not like anything else that anyone else has. And then, like you said, I can tell a story about it. I got a handmade broom out near Marfa, Texas, from this guy that just specializes in making really weird witch brooms, and I had that thing. Like, I paid way too much for it, but it was the coolest broom I've ever seen. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
but yeah, like stuff you don't see every day. You couldn't go to Ross or Target or whatever and get any of this. So,
yeah, yeah.
well, you talked a bit about things that the industry can do. And on that note, you guys are active in the Good Future Design Alliance, which, from what I understand, kind of brings together a lot of folks in the industry. So, can you talk about what this organization does and why it's important to work with others in the industry in this way?
Well, again, like we were talking before, it's about education. It's about letting people know what the possibilities are, because people, I think more people know about heat pump hot water heaters now than when I first started ranting about them, maybe only 5 years ago, or 10 years ago. So people don't know what the possibilities are. They can't use them or sell them. So the Good Future Design Alliance is really an education and advocacy organization, and they're focused on reducing the enormous scale of waste in the design and construction industry. So again, people don't know you can take a house apart until you show them you can take a house apart. So it's really just for them, it's developing the Good Future Design Alliance, developing educational programming for public and industry professionals. Again, just here are other options. Here are other ways of doing things. Because when we're a business, we have we're only going to our margin of profit has to be small to get more business, and so you got to make you can't uh, invest in new ways of doing things because you'll lose money. So you don't stop to say, "Hey, is there another way of doing it?" But if somebody comes to you and says, "Here is another way of doing it," they've cut uh, that loss of profit down a bit. So really, that's what the Good Future Design Alliance is showing people uh, the other way of doing things. And mostly, how uh, the decisions they make lead to waste and what the other options are.
Yeah, so just staying current and seeing what others in the industry are doing as well that might help you.
Yeah,
It's always a good
and
idea.
yeah, and again, this is not about reducing waste or things like that, just to pat yourself on the back and say I'm a really good person, which of course is nice to do. But it's also about saving money. So again, all these wellness or sustainable practices really, uh, in the short run and in the long run, can lead to saving money. Not everything. Some things like doing solar, you have to have a capital investment. You're going to save money within 5 years or less. I mean, I have a whole solar array on my house. I'm running my whole house, two EVs, and I pay nothing. But it took me, it took a little bit of an investment. So some things take a little bit of investment to save money over time. Other things, uh, save you money right away.
Right. Well, Steve, you've gone over quite a bit. And is there anything else you'd like to talk about before we move on? Anything we didn't cover?
Uh, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay, that's fine. I guess what resources would you share with folks who want to learn more about anything we've talked about or things that you found helpful in your journey?
Um, that's difficult. I actually, there's a lot of information out there, but uh, not a lot of it is useful. The USGBC, of course, is a wonderful resource. I would say they're probably one of the best overall resources, and then the Good Future Design Alliance. So, yeah.
Okay. And we will link to all this in the show notes as well for folks who want to learn more. I guess we'll go ahead and move on now to our Green Life Hack portion of the show where we share something that listeners can do to make their lives more sustainable. Just practice they can implement one thing from each of us that you can give a try. So, Steve, would you like to start us out?
Is it just one thing?
You can do as many as you want. And people, yeah,
And
just give
it's
people
a
options. Yeah, yeah,
something
just
small, right? I
something
mean,
so
my
that people
goodness.
are able to
Yeah.
kind of try out and not get overwhelmed with like
Yeah. I mean,
something huge.
of course, walk, instead of taking, that's such an easy one.
Yeah.
Bicycle, of course. Buy bulk rather than, buying, buy bulk granola, bulk nuts, something like that. Going to the farmer's market, reduce transportation and packaging costs. I compost and then grow, my own vegetables. I have chickens and bees, and wow, that if you, if you're, not an apartment dweller, and you have a small plot of land or a small yard, I mean, composting and then getting rid of all that vegetable and protein scraps and putting them into a compost, creating rich soil that then you grow your own vegetables with, you get great tomatoes. And then chickens, I love having chickens. They're so wonderful. And you put your vegetable scraps in there, they eat it, they poop and make fertilizer, and they give you eggs. Like, why would you have dogs or cats? Chickens are the pet of the future. And bees are wonderful, and they're so independent. I wish my kids were as independent as my bees. I mean, you check them every couple of weeks, but they go out and they harvest, they come back and make honey. So and I love composting, growing vegetables, chickens, bees, and it's not like I have that a farm or something. This is a very small, area. I do this in like 2 raised beds of vegetables, but it's so productive and so rewarding to, last night I picked some mustard green and just sauteed it up, and it's just so tasty, and they're my mustard greens. So I think just those little things are wonderful.
Yeah, there's such satisfaction in eating something that you grew yourself, even if it's just like one tomato that you got off
Yeah.
of your plant that you had for 5 months. Well, my green life hack is somewhat related to the topic for this episode, and it
Do you have a
is.
different one for each episode? So is this number 78?
No, yeah, I try to do a different one, but I think
Wow.
I've definitely overlapped a few times or gone back and repeated. So, but for this one, it's not just to, well, it is to buy used or local as much as you can, but specifically if you have in your town available to you, there are places like Habitat for Humanity restores or Creative Reuse stores that sell things for your home. So sometimes that's lumber, nails, light fixtures, whatever. Sometimes it's just regular kind of stuff you'd find at a thrift store for inside the house. But a lot of places have these restores where they take old construction material or pieces of homes or buildings, and things that are donated from builders or developers. And you can go and actually get a toilet or whatever weird thing you're looking for your house and figure out how to use it. And it saves it from the landfill, and you probably save a lot of money as well. So for anyone in the space for something like that, if that's available to you, that's a great. And then the creative reuse stores are also good for if you're just looking to kind of maybe get some stuff to craft with or to decorate your home, or bolts of fabric or whatever. Those have the random things that maybe you can't give to a thrift shop, but you can find a way to someone that can make something out of it. So those are my life hacks for the month. Steve, thanks so much for being on and sharing your knowledge with us. I've learned a lot, and I appreciate you kind of, giving us some hope for the future of design and building. Where can we find you online?
Well, carbonshack.com. That's our main website. Of course, you can follow us on Instagram and all that kind of stuff. And our we sell a lot of products for the home, light fixtures, tile, insulated coffee mugs, and all that on the website as well. We have another interesting website, which I didn't mention before. It's sustainablebuild.org. And on that website, this comes out of our project where we took the home apart and documented taking all those pieces apart and reusing it. So on that site, you can, it's mostly geared towards the United States. You put in your area code, and it will show you how the choices you make and how that compares to a similar house in your neighborhood. So if you are doing an addition and or if you choose a heat pump hot water heater versus a gas hot water heater, it'll show you the relative difference between your choice will make in reducing your carbon footprint. So it's a really wonderful tool available for anybody to look at their operational or their embodied carbon footprint. So I encourage people to go use that because it's just a wonderful free tool. And it comes out of all we've learned about making choices and how small choices and big choices can add up. And what's interesting is you can see how, if I line dry my clothing, or if I do solar, if I do LED lights, like what is the difference in the sort of carbon footprint savings. So that's a really great site.
Yeah, great. And that sounds like a good tool for folks who may need to be making decisions between, do I do this or this? That could kind of help tip the scales one way or the other if they're not sure.
Exactly. It'll show you the
So,
relative value of what your choice is.
yeah, great. Well, thanks again, Steve,
Yeah.
for being on, and for everyone listening, have a great rest of your day.